Hi everybody, it's Miss Mac again, and today's mini lesson for Friday, April 3rd, 2020 is a review of text structures and a continuation of yesterday's mini lesson and assignment. So yesterday you had to read chapters 1, 2, and 3 and chunk your reading, stopping at moments to pause and think, what did I just read? And then you were to take that information and fill in a chart that looked similar to this. Here's the title of your book, here's the author, where I stopped, what is the author trying to tell me, and a possible text structure. I realize it may have been a little confusing for some of you, so I want to take time and demonstrate with your book. So let's get started. I'll open up the book to chapter 1. And I'm going to start reading, but I'm also going to chunk my reading. I'm going to pause at different times to think about what I read. The United States began as a group of 13 colonies that were ruled by Great Britain. The colonies were located along the East Coast and stretched from New Hampshire in the north to Georgia in the south. They extended as far west as the Appalachian Mountains. Before the late 1700s, few colonists had traveled west of the Appalachians. 100 years later, the United States would extend west to the Pacific Ocean. So I'm going to stop here at the end of page 7, and I am going to put that on my chart. And over here, I'm going to just jot down some facts that I've learned. So I learned that the United States began as 13 colonies and were located on the East Coast. I also learned that after 100 years, the land stretched clear across the country to the West Coast. Okay, so now I'm going to think about those details that I just typed in. And if I think about my 5 text structures, description, sequence, compare and contrast, cause and effect, problem and solution, and I go back to the text and I just look, it looks like the author's telling me what the colonies were and where they were located. So that, to me, means that a possible text structure could be description. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. The expanding colonies. People from Europe migrated to the colonies hoping to find better lives. Some came to escape war or poor living conditions in their homelands. Others wanted to be able to own land or practice their religions freely. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and go back to my chart. I'm going to put in at the end of page 8. And what did I learn here? Well, I learned that people moved to the New World to be able to worship their own religion freely. They also moved to the New World in order to own land and escape wars. So if I look at those details, I'm looking at why people moved here. So when I look at why, that's a clue word for cause and effect. So they moved to the New World because they wanted to worship. They moved to the New World because they wanted to own their own land. And they wanted to escape wars that were happening where they were living. So that is a cause and effect text structure. Moving on. The first frontier. As the number of people living in the colonies grew, cities and towns became crowded. By the mid-1700s, more living and farming space was needed, so people started spreading west towards the Appalachian Mountains. Native Americans lived in this area, but few other people had explored it. The Appalachians became the 13 colonies' first frontier. As the nation grew, its western boundary would be pushed farther and farther out. So I'm going to go back to my chart. At the end of page 9, what did I learn? So let me get my bullets ready. I learned that the 13 colonies were becoming crowded and more farming and space was needed. I also learned that the colonists began to move west. All right, so if I think about it, well, they moved west because there was no more space. If I think of it that way, that word because helps signal to me that it's a cause and effect relationship. You might be thinking it was a problem and solution. But the problem, yes, could be that it became crowded. The solution might be that they decided to move west, or they might have decided to build new homes higher up, like a skyscraper. But it's more of a cause and effect relationship. Because of the overcrowdedness, they moved west. Something happened because of something else. A law for the land. Great Britain's government thought it would be hard to rule the colonists if they moved farther west. The British also wanted to prevent expensive wars with Native Americans who would defend their land from colonists moving into the Appalachians. In 1763, Great Britain passed a law called the Proclamation of 1763. The law said that the colonists could not settle beyond the Appalachians. That land would be set aside for Native Americans. The proclamation angered the colonists. It was one of the many reasons why they fought the Revolutionary War against Great Britain, beginning in 1775. In 1776, the colonies announced their independence from Great Britain, becoming the United States of America. By 1783, the United States won the war. After the war, all the land west to the Mississippi, north to Canada, and south to Florida belonged to the United States. Okay, so let me go back to my chart, fill this in. Page 11. What did I learn? Well, I learned that Great Britain issued a proclamation that said no one can live in the West. Let me fix this. I also learned that the proclamation angered the colonists. They fought a war. They fought the Revolutionary in order to gain independence from Great Britain. Okay, so if I look at my details again, what do I see? I see, well, Great Britain said you can't live in the West. Colonists really didn't like that. So that's really a problem. Did the colonists try to solve their problem? Yes. They fought a war and they broke away from Great Britain. So that leads me to believe that this is a problem and solution text structure. So you see how I chunked my reading. I wrote down in this column where I stopped. Then in the middle column, I wrote down the facts that I learned. What was the author trying to tell me? And then in this third column, I wrote down possible text structures. So today, for the rest of your mini work in your reader's workshop, I want you to go back and work on yesterday's text structure assignment. See if you can revise some of your columns based on what I just did. And then I want you to move on to read chapters 4, 5, and 6 and continue practicing identifying facts and identifying text structures. If you have any questions, you can email me at my email address. And have a great day.